Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me and my guest today. My name is Kelly Butchert, and I'm the host of the Soul Call with Kelly B. And for those of you that have been following my podcast show for a wee while now, you might recognise that I'm rejoined by Lucienne Koops, who is back in conversation with me. Lucienne, welcome back to my show.
Thank you so much. Great to be back again.
So lovely to have another conversation with you. Now, I'm trying to remember back, Lucienne, I think it was maybe about November 2023 we spoke first, something like that. I think
More or
it's,
less. Yeah, about over a year ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And let me think about what has happened during that time. There has so much has changed for me, and I know so much has changed for you too. So, for those of you that haven't heard that first conversation, I've recently re-edited it, and I would love for you to go back and listen to that conversation because there was so much juiciness in there. But for those of you that haven't had the privilege of hearing that first episode that I had with Lucienne, Lucienne, could you please introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what it is that you do?
Well, thank you. That's always a big challenge, this question, because I feel like I'm so many different roles in this lifetime, which I equally all embrace. First of all, I'm a proud mother. I'm a devoted partner. I love change, and I love to make radical changes in my life, and it always works out for the better, actually. But from a professional perspective, I see myself as a writer, a catalyst, and a coach, or even a sparring partner, if you can name it like that. I'm not like a typical coach. It's more like I like to really dig deep, provoke people who are ready for it, to get real clarity about themselves, and to shift them wherever they need to be shifted. So these days, and actually since the last time we spoke, I have been kind of like moving around, like what my specific role is. I mean, it was always about contributing, sorry, to the rise of consciousness on this planet, but there's so many different roles to pick from. So after I've written my book and published it in 21, I was kind of like, okay, like what's the role that's best for me? And leadership has always been on the forefront of my passion. I've been working as a consultant. I've been an entrepreneur for many years. And I feel that those in leadership really have the impact on many, whether they're aware of it or not. So they influence so many people. So for me, as I like to always think big and make huge steps, or at least create the biggest impacts I can make, I like to focus on those who are in leadership role today. And especially now in the times we're in, I mean, there is like, I would just summarize it. There is a big choice to make these days. You either go left or you go right or you go up or down, whatever you want to call it. But there is a big choice to make. And I think especially for leaders who are aware of what's happening, it's time to step up. So I'm currently also writing my second book. So yeah, there's lots happening. And as you know, I'm always fascinated about the topic around money and financial systems. So like I said, there are many different roles I like to take on.
And we are definitely going to get into quite a lot of, well, we'll just see where this conversation takes us, Lucienne, because we just trust that our higher, wiser selves will always navigate the way forward. So let's just recap then. So when I first connected with you, it was online and it was post lockdown, and things were very, very difficult and challenging for many and very different on the planet. And was it during that time that you had written your first book, The Ripple Effect,
Yes, yes.
which I have recommended to so many people
Thank
because
you for that.
it is a book for this time, Lucienne. And, I just want to kind of pause on that because I know that people like yourself are often on to the next thing, because your life is so full and you know that you've got such a big mission and purpose here. So we can often then, we can be on to the next thing, and yet some people haven't even discovered the first thing, do you know, or these beautiful offerings that you've brought to the world already. And
Mm.
I think to be the trailblazer that you are, to be a forerunner for these times, we can sometimes need to take a pause ourselves to say, oh, hold on, not everybody's
Mhm.
quite caught up. And I don't mean that in a hierarchical way, but there are way showers on the planet just now, and you, I believe, are one of those, you know, where you have walked in the shoes of the corporate world, you know what these industries are like. You have a very, very, how would I describe it? A very earthly experience, as well as having that big picture of what the corporate world is like, what the financial institutions are like. So you have a foot in both worlds. You can see ahead, but you're also very much grounded in the reality here. And I just want people to know, for me, and we spoke about this in the first conversation, that it was quite a lonely time during lockdown.
Mm.
You know, for those of us that, I don't mean it from a point of view that we were in the know, but we were looking deeper. And I know that many people were, but there are so many more people weren't. We were looking into the deeper truths and searching for the deeper truths within ourselves and out with ourselves. And so it meant so much to me to connect with souls like yourself, Lucienne, at that time. And to then read your book was just like, oh my goodness, like
Mm.
someone who really gets this. But I learned so much from you in your book, and also in that conversation that we had previously. So I just wanted to start off by saying all of that, and to say thank you to you for, you know, taking on a big mission in this life. It's not easy. It's not easy to put your head above the parapet and to ask the deep questions of ourselves and others. So for those of us that are tuning into this episode who don't know your work, who want to know more, could you just summarize what that journey was like for you at that time, and what propelled you to write that first book, and what
Mm.
people can expect to learn from you and maybe themselves from reading that book?
Wow. Well, thank you first of all for reflecting this, because you've actually made a very valid point that I am always looking to the next step instead of like resting in what's already there and what's already shared, and deepen that, or even I would say put it out there again. I'm ready on to the next thing. I mean, it's a gift, and it's also like kind of like a weakness, but thanks for reflecting that back again to me. So what inspired me to write that book? First of all, I didn't see myself at all as a writer. And I think that's a very important point, because sometimes you literally feel like called to do something that is so out of the ordinary. Um, at that time, I was working as a coach, and I had really a lot of issues with writing, even short posts on Facebook or whatever social media. It took me a long time to get something like that really felt good for me. So I literally had that call in the morning, as you might recall, like waking up and like I always ask the question, what excites me today? And if at least take one moment during the day to follow up on that call, whatever comes up, the answer that comes up, I already think like, well, that's already a good step forward in life and a good thing to focus on during the day. It doesn't happen, obviously, you can spend much time on it. But anyway, that morning in May 2020, the answer that came back was like, you have to write a book. And I was so perplexed that I could not even imagine, like, I will never ever do that. So I dismissed it, and I asked it the next day again, and I dismissed it again. And then the third day or so, I just started writing down, okay, what's it going to be about? To make a long story short, it took me 5 months to really figure out what my message was. And I had to overcome some fear to put it in a way that it's not, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, another spiritual book, but that it was way more about our position in life and in our societies. And that, of course, was related to what happened during COVID, because I was so perplexed and I was so, to be honest, so disappointed in humanity. Like I mean, all the things we experienced, no matter what side you are, the pain was equal. But the fact that we could just literally get polarized within families, within relationships, with partners, with children. I mean, it was just, and it went so fast. It went so very fast. And it only got worse during the time that I was writing that book. So I had to address the thing to me that nobody really addressed at that time, at least not many writers, was the fact that what's our position in society. So for those to get an idea of the book, it is literally about, I mean, it is a lot about the inner journey. But I see life always as my reality is a reflection of myself. Whomever I meet, whatever I experience, whatever happens, it tells me something about me. And so this core part of being, what I call being, is the start of the book. And then I zoom out to how we connected with each other. And that's more about all our relationships, whether it's within our companies that we work, within the jobs, with our partners, with our children, with family. I mean, so it's not like intimate relationships only, but it's way broader, because I think we often forget that we're so focused on the best partner or the best relationship, but we have constantly are in relationship with each other because we are truly connected. But because we don't feel that way, and we're actually in essence always looking for that connection, but often doing it the wrong way by criticizing each other or projecting our frustration or excluding each other. So connecting is a really important message to look differently at the relationships you have. And then I zoom out again, and I think that's what makes the books quite different from other books, is that I zoom out in our role within society. And the main question there is that where do I comply, where do I compromise, or where do I acquiesce to whatever the outer world asks from us? And that's a lot. I mean, whether you're a student at school, or whether you are an employee, or whether you're a leader, or whether you are a politician, or whether you are, doesn't matter what it is, a social media addict, you're constantly seduced to comply with something that's not authentic to you or not in alignment with your values. So I've tried to explain the construct of the system, the power dynamics of the system, or actually I invited the reader to question that and to look at it differently with like an outer perspective, like observing like what are actually the dynamics, because we all know them. I mean, no one disagrees with me, but everybody comes to the same question when I talk about this, like, yeah, but I can't do anything. How can I change this? I mean, I vote, so if it's about a political issue, I vote, so that's the only thing I can do. But it is more difficult and more simple at the same time. I mean, we create the system and we keep feeding it. And the biggest source of how we feed the system is the fear that we allow to be there. And that is all the little fears. You know, it's not just the big fears of the ones that we live within ourselves, or the big fears of the wars out there, or the big fears of the flood that is coming, or whatever. It's also the tiny little fears of just not being authentic enough, or not stepping up and share your voice and share your opinion, because immediately someone else comes there and say like, well, you don't have a right, or you're a conspiracy theorist, or whatever. Especially you and I probably, you just like me, experience this wave of criticism, especially if you look a bit different on life or live it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So living is to me the most important element of the book, compared to other books that are perhaps in certain perspective the same. And so yeah, and I think since COVID, period ended. I don't know if it really has ever ended, but at least since it came back to a bit normal again. And especially since the start of this year, I mean, it's becoming more clear that the system itself has become obsolete. It doesn't function anymore because we cannot live equally in this system. I mean, it's the gap between the wealthiest and the poor is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and those in power are obviously the wealthiest one, and they are completely blinded by their greed and their need for more power. I mean, there's no one to judge here. But again, we created ourselves ultimately from the absolute perspective. We created ourselves. It's our own movie we create. So yes, there is a solution, but we have to step up, and we have to have the courage to step up. And for me, the time that I needed since 21, when I published the book, until now, was to really heal myself from having received so much criticism that I didn't dare to speak up anymore. I think for 1.5 years, I more or less kept silent. I didn't speak up online anymore. I just was very mellow. I tried a different direction to get out of this position of speaking up, and also frustrated, of course, because not a lot happened. But I think the criticism is really, really been really tough for me, and I think for many of us.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I just want to reflect back to you the bravery for being a forerunner, for being that legacy leader. And we don't always see the immediate ripple effect.
Yes.
And this is why the healing work and having that internal reserve of really resourcefulness to learn how to sustain ourselves through some very challenging times is so important. There are so many points that I want to reflect back to you, Lucienne. Already, there's so much in there when you think about the resilience, the endurance, the strength, the courage, and the time to heal. I mean, there's so much emotionally in there, but I'm even going back to, I said at the start there, I thought it was November 23 time. Time for me is a really funny thing. What
I
is
know.
anyway? It was earlier than that because I experienced the same. And so, as you know, and a lot of the viewers and listeners know that I worked for 22 years in education and I could no longer stay in that system. And like you've reflected, we are the system. So when we say, "Oh, I can't change it," well, we are the system. We've created these systems. So if we're not going to put our heads above the parapet and speak our truth, then of course nothing will change. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. Um, and there is like a herd mentality, and you can understand why people choose that mentality because they're seeking safety, and there's safety in numbers. And, we can go into that much more deeply, but I think enough said there. So I think it was earlier in 2023, because what happened to me later that year, I had experienced a lot of shadow banning on social media. And for people that have never experienced that, they might not have heard that term. So it was things like, and I had backed off from sharing a lot of my personal opinions and sharing things about, what some people would call conspiracy theories, but what I believe to be true about the bigger picture. And you referred to the huge gap of financial wealth that exists in this planet, and where the money is that's who holds the power. So the elites, if you like, I was sharing videos and perspectives about this during lockdown. So I was kind of behaving myself by 2023. I was retreating a little bit more, thinking I was being a little bit more cautious because I knew that some people were being wiped from social media and being you just cleared off like they didn't exist. And of course, during those times, that was how we did connect with other people. That's how I found people like yourself, Lucienne. So I thought, okay, I better start behaving myself here. However, I was consistently being shadow banned. So an example of that would be I would maybe like a comment that someone else had put up a post. And I would see later on my newsfeed, it was like I hadn't commented, I hadn't liked the post or loved the post. Things that I was resharing were then getting taken down. However, as I said, by 2023, I decided to be a little bit more cautious about it. And then on my birthday, and this is how I know our conversation was before November, because my birthday is October. Um, as people do, they were wishing me happy birthday. And I'd gone back in later on in the day just to see if I had more messages and to respond to those and to put up a thanks to everyone. And I couldn't access my Facebook and I couldn't access my Instagram. I
Wow.
exist. I had been completely wiped. So I hadn't had any warnings prior to that. It was just gone, and there wasn't any opportunity to appeal. So some people I'd heard had gone in and, to the Meta customer services, and I'm saying that with inverted commas, and they were able to appeal and retrieve the
Retrieve.
pages. I wasn't even getting that as an option. And that really bothered me massively because we had all these fast checkers on, before all of that. And obviously, Mark Zuckerberg's come out now and said that, oh, we're going to rethink the whole fact checking thing. Hmm. So again, enough said about that, but I was completely wiped and I was devastated. So it happened on my birthday, and I can't help but think that there was something planned and coordinated about that. So I was deleted. I lost a lot of my family photos and memories that I hadn't backed up. So I was really sad about that. I'd lost all my contacts. So people like yourself, people that I had been in contact with for years. And not everybody uses their name on Facebook. Some people use social media friendly names. So trying to remember what people were called and things like that. So it's been a very slow process trying to gear myself up because I had fallen out with social media by this point. I was never going back on it. I was really annoyed because also my livelihood had gone because most of my business was online. And I host most of my masterminds and things inside social media groups. All of that was gone overnight. So I can totally appreciate where you're coming from when you said that you needed time to go and heal because I had received a lot of criticism. I had received a lot of support, but also a lot of criticism within my own family, within my own friend groups, like Crazy Kelly's at it again, sort of thing with their conspiracies. Um, that is now shifting, as time has gone on. It's crazy to hear some of the things that my friends and family, like the words they're speaking back to me. I'm like, oh wow, okay, never thought this day would arrive, but it's given me hope. And what I really resented when we're talking about systems was that I was almost held hostage to that system, that online platform. It was like they could just wipe you overnight. So I had to do a lot of healing myself
Mm.
and dig deep to say, am I just going to take the first knock and say, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll just go and get a job because that'll be easier. And I'll just go back into the hamster wheel, back into these old systems, do what I've always done, and I'll always get what I've always got. I thought, no feckin' way.
Good for you.
Am I going back there? And I have to say, Lucienne, what really bolstered me was knowing that I wasn't alone.
Mm.
And we know that separation is an illusion because we are all one family and there is a collective unified field. We do live in a duality consciousness, as we know. But what I love about what you said was, and this is how I work too, we're working to spiral out of the low frequencies that have been running amok on the planet with low consciousness, with greed and poverty, all the duality. We're taking back our sovereignty, and it just felt so good to me. And that was one of the many benefits in lockdown, that I had for a long time felt like I was a bit of a lone warrior. So, in many ways, lockdown actually showed me that outside of my immediate circles, there were other people who thought like me, who were having the same experiences as me. So I've got to be grateful and thankful for that silver lining in the COVID cloud, because I met people like you or read your book. And then when the shit hit the fan again, and I needed time to withdraw and kind of lick my wounds a little bit, feel sorry for myself for 5 minutes, I thought, no, F that, I'm coming back out. Here we go again. And it has been a journey like that, certainly for many, and feeling so bolstered and hopeful that there are other warriors like yourself who are putting their flags in the ground and saying, no, no, I'm not done yet. Here
No,
for
and
round
this,
two.
yeah, and it's exactly what the essential part of the system is. They kind of like wipe you out, and then they hope that you keep laying down and just be submissive again or
Yeah.
compliant again to the system. But exactly and it's not like, I just want to say that because it's not like a system in such a thing that one person is leading it and that's one bad person at the top. I mean, there are like a group of people who are more empowered that we all know simply because of their position, their wealth, and their influence. But it's also an energy construct, almost geometrical. How do you say that in English? Based on geometry.
Yeah, like it,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's literally like we can approach it very scientifically and very mathematically, and try to get away from this they are that and we are this, because then we do exactly the same again.
Right.
And they're also trapped in the same system, just like we are. It feels that they are better off because they have more means, so they have more power, which is the weak side of ourselves as well, because we all kind of like want to be in this position of power and freedom, which is good, which is natural, and should never be at the cost of others. But still, we look up to those who are in that position now, in a way. And I think being honest about that and being reflective about what it tells us about ourselves, where our ego is still like selfish versus the selfishness. I mean, we need a bit of selfishness, being selfish, and we need a lot of being selfishness as well. I think it's a balance. And I wish for especially many communities out there who see through it, who are still kind of like, and I'm generalizing here, stuck in the fact that there is a group out there against us,
Mhm.
which I don't think supports any of us. Yes, of course, there are, like what you sadly enough experience, that you're wiped out from a platform like Facebook or Meta, which is obviously a misuse of power by the greatest form. But that they are only like a puppet in the whole circus as well.
Mhm.
They also play their role. So good
Yeah.
for you that you stepped up again and that you didn't stay back and retreated back to your old job. And I
Yeah.
mean, you couldn't, I know for sure, but still good that you did it anyway, because I think this is the biggest. And I think for anyone right now who is been in this field like we have been, or similar fields, this is for me the moment to step up for any one of us in a very different way, perhaps, than we've done before. I think we all need to make like a bigger step.
Yeah.
And that's what I had after my kind of like healing phase came to like an end. I was like back to the question, okay, so now what? What is
Mhm.
it I want to do? And obviously the same answer came back again. Still the same role, still the same position, but I have to now almost polarize, being more polarizing in my language in order to trigger people to step up, not to wake up, but to step up. And that was for me another step back into the field, like, okay, I have to take courage. But this time, because it was healed, for most of it, I'm still emotional when I talk about it. So it's still like a painful phase, but I feel so much more empowered now that I really feel like, no, I'm not gonna be put there again. That's done. It's different now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you experienced that same shift. It's different from where it was like 4 years ago. Then I was also like sometimes screaming, like, because I
Yeah.
didn't know what else to do. And I wanted to be right. And I wanted other people to know what I thought. And that has all gone. And I think that's the beauty of the period we're in now. And I think 2025 to 27, these years are very important for us to keep going, even if we don't see any results. And I'm talking to myself as well, because result is not, it's the old paradigm again. And I'm falling for it every now and then. I must admit it. It's very hard to keep doing the same thing pure out of joy and don't see like an echo coming back when it's not like I expect it to come back. It does come back, but not in the way I expect. It's really difficult to just keep in my vibration, keep in my alignment, keep it up, and just do it for the joy of it. And just do it for my own alignment and just for my own purpose. Because this is what I came here to do.
Would you describe, Lucienne, that what you've experienced is like the death of ego? And I don't mean a complete death, because we need the ego, we need to be able to interface with the world and have a personality or a shop front, as I call it. But would you describe it like death of the ego?
Yes, but in a different one than the one I experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
So the one I experienced before was more about my old identity growing up. I mean, I kind of like woke up when I was 44. So that was more like, yeah, how do you say it? Shaking off like the things that didn't fit with me, never had fit with me, but I was still in a safe space, you know? I was still like my biggest challenge to fit in, to be the chameleon, you know, don't speak up, don't be different, don't be authentic, don't stand out. That
Mm-hmm.
was the one that was challenged during COVID, and that was the one that shifted after this healing period. So it's a different one. I would say it's more like essential one for me,
Mm-hmm.
which I could recall back to my earliest remember of my childhood when I was like 3, 4 years old. I really was this outgoing, funny little child, you know, always dance, and I was always like doing crazy things, or not crazy, but like adventurous things. And I'd lost that. I really lost it until I was, well, 50 plus, yeah. And that is slowly coming back, but not like this. Huh? It's like the patterns run deep, really run deep.
Yeah, you really do.
And I think that's another, sorry for interrupting,
No.
but that's another thing um, that I think perhaps I was stuck in. I don't know if it's for you as well, that we kind of like want to be perfect, like enlightened or free of everything, and be like the perfect partner, parent, whatever, and be like high vibing all day. And it's not like that. We're not a constant light. And I now can laugh at myself when I see myself going down and say, like, okay, what are you going to do today? You're going to sit behind the laptop and be drained? Or you're going to jump up, put on some music and dance, or walk, or go to the fitness, whatever, move. So change your vibration and come back up again. Because if we don't do that, we keep falling back too much. And no, I don't know anyone who's consistently on a high vibration, even though we have the intellectual knowledge that it should be like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's within this system construct, what I just talked about. I don't think it's yet possible to be completely in this high vibe unless you are completely living on your own with
Mm-hmm.
no interference outside of yourself, no social media, nothing, you know. I mean, of course, I can be happy then, but I will be bored because it doesn't fit with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what I'm reflecting on here is some of the things that I've been sharing inside my memberships and my circles with women and men about the different frequencies. And when we think of everything as energy, and that's true of our level of consciousness as well. And I know that we are both fans of Richard Rudd's work and that you're a Gene Keys guide as I am. And what I've been explaining to people is that as much as we would like to be in these enlightened states of consciousness all the time, elevated, that's what we're aspiring to be in our mastery of our soul and these,
Yes.
Siddhic frequencies, that Siddhic quality of what Buddha and the Christ consciousness. We can't even be in our gifts all the time. And Richard also talks about the shadow frequencies. And what I love is that you are sharing the importance of not blaming everything outside of ourselves, because as Neville Goddard talks about, the outside is just the inside pushed out. So it's a reflection and a mirror in this holographic reality of the conditions that the collective consciousness has created. So we are co-creators of our reality. This is just like a drama playing out.
Yeah.
Oh, what do I learn about self here that I don't necessarily
Mm.
like all that much? So when we start to get a bit more curious and a bit more playful with it all, it's like, gosh, there's quite a bit of shadow within here that I need to bring back home to love and accept that these are parts of me and embrace them and say, you're all right, I've got you. Let's not go down into victimhood with it though, because that's not going to serve yourself or humanity. Let's get curious about this, because the shadow serves a role. The shadow is meant to awaken us to our gifts. It's meant to unlock our gifts, and then we can ascend. And really, it's descension for me. It's bringing that heaven to earth frequencies, bringing these higher levels of consciousness into this human, earthly journey that we're all experiencing. So, yeah, I think the time is over for blaming everything on the outside. It's like, oh, actually, it's all in here.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Beyond that, Lucienne,
Sorry, say that
what
again.
would your reflection be of that?
Well, you exactly describing one of my biggest learnings in life, to be at peace with the low vibes as well as with the high vibes. Because I felt the low, I've never been anyway sensitive to depression or whatsoever. So that's not in my journey. But I could play the victim role. Very subtle, very subtle. I wasn't even aware I was playing the victim role. But I was like blaming the things on others, projecting my frustration and complaining and gossiping and comparing. I mean, it's all part of the victim role. And because I knew that, but I couldn't recognize it or couldn't acknowledge it to myself, I also didn't allow myself to be in the higher vibes. So I literally pushed almost like a lid on myself every time, like, no, 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 you have to clear this first, otherwise you cannot be in the high vibes. It's another trap of the whole spiritual thinking, that we have to clear all these shadows and heal every shadow. Well, I think we can be honest, we never heal them all. And that's fine. That's totally fine, because you beautifully said it. It's just every time a trigger, like, no, 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 don't go that way. Go back to the alignment
Yeah,
and just appreciate it. And appreciate also, and that's my lesson actually of the last 2 months with my partner, appreciate also the downsides and shadows of your partner. And don't project this perfect person there, because I'm not perfect, so neither is he. And I had to learn that my reactive patterns, which is what Richard Rudd talks about a lot, when you are in your shadow, you're either reactive, depending on the pattern you have, but the color you have. But I have been very stuck in my being too reactive to things. I was right. I mean, from an objective perspective, perhaps, but
yeah,
that's not the point,
no.
because my aggressive or softly aggressive reaction put him back into his shadow, because he got defensive. And yeah, I can't blame him because I was literally attacking him with my reaction. So we spiraled down together for a very long time actually, without being able to step out of that. And until we literally came to the end, I was still blaming him. And then I went for a month, the last month, last month of January, last month in January, I really had to go deep again. Like, no, I'm just playing my part in this interaction as he is. He's no more to blame, or I'm not more to blame. It's just action, reaction, which always happens in relationships and more in the intimate ones. So yeah.
And this is what makes you such an authentic leader for these times, Lucienne, because your honesty in your sharings.
Mm.
You know, gone are the days I feel of the gurus. Now, I do feel that there will be very enlightened beings walking this planet, but you've touched on a really important point of, I'm not perfect. Now, when we look at it from a higher perspective, it is all perfection. It is
Of
all
course.
absolutely perfect. But from a human perspective, I absolutely know what you mean. Like, because I don't believe in mistakes. I don't believe that there's any such thing as mistakes. I've really changed my whole thought field around
Mm.
that. But it does feel like we make mistakes. And when we're going through challenges and adversities and initiations, whatever they may be, and often they show up in our closest relationships, it's always a gift and an opportunity. Often when it doesn't feel like it, it's the shittiest of times. But we have a golden opportunity to learn more about ourselves. And it's almost like we're cracking the code of what it means to not just survive, but thrive in
Mm.
these times so that we can elevate. So it's only by going through it can we gain the wisdom on the other side of it. In other words, to break this through the matrix of ourselves so we can ascend into these higher states of
Yeah.
consciousness. So I love how, the way that you portray it is here are my real life examples. I've walked through some holy fires. This has not been a walk in the park. It's not easy breezy straight in my life. I've walked through this. This is tough stuff. And I think that's what is really needed on this planet because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing goes on.
Mm.
There's a lot of the love and light brigade, and maybe that's needed too. I'm not criticizing, but there also needs to be this is what I mean when I said earlier that you very much have it grounded in reality. Although you've got the big picture and you can see the bigger picture here and what's playing out at these higher levels, if you like, of mastery. I will call it that. But down, it's like when we're getting down and dirty, it's like, oh, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. So I love how you're reflecting that back to us. It's not like, I've authored a book and I'm telling people about these authentic leadership models and, you know, this is the reality. It's tough, but it's so worth it. Would you agree?
Definitely. And I think, I mean, if we compare the system we're in, like, and we are the director of our own movie, then no movie will be very interesting if it's all love and light.
No.
We got bored. So if our life would only be love and light and we would be perfectly beings together, I always say, like, well, I don't think I want to live in a planet like that, which is only creates like a heaven on earth. At least not for, and here's I think the difference is the time we go through, I should say, our generation and up until people born to around 2000. So everybody born before 2000, more or less, they are the ones that are like have to learn to deal with these ups and downs and with this victim role versus freedom and with the shadow versus the gift. I think there are now children born on this planet who really have this purity in them and who won't have that much of a suffering as we have had.
I
But
agree.
we are of the current system. And
Yeah,
we have been like we still carrying the legacy of the old system with us.
yeah,
And it's, I think, our role, you and me and many like us, to help those ease as much as possible or release as much as possible in order for the next generations to come
Mhm.
to be born with more clarity and more purity and with more authenticity.
Mhm.
So I think this literally is the trick. And also actually, I mean, I was born not for no reason here, because I love this kind of like fight, and I love this digging, and I love this exploring and self-reflecting and figuring out how things work here on this planet. I love it. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't, perhaps in the next life or next phase of my soul, I might want to come back as a pure soul and do a different role.
Yeah,
But our soul here right now, I think is for
yeah,
this reason, to
yeah,
literally like clear this out.
yeah. Yeah, we've signed up for the gig to be the boots on the ground and to really kick some
Exactly.
doors in. So,
Yeah.
Ian, I would love for you to talk about, this. We've heard some of your journey, and I know it's just been a very short summary, but so much has changed for your life since our last conversation. I mean, you've moved country for a start. I mean,
Yes.
Italy, I mean, it's so idyllic where you are, it's beautiful. And your work, I'm sure, will have evolved as you have. So, how are you showing up in service now to lead us home to the remembrance of who we truly are as souls? And I'd love to hear a bit more about your second book that's coming too.
Well, the second book will be it will be about authentic leadership, and I really have an issue with the word leadership, so that's why I'm hesitating. Because I think we're done with that word, because it's been like misused in many ways, or labeled in many ways, or it gets meaning in kind of like a hierarchical
Mhm,
thinking. The
mhm,
leader at the top, the leader is more important, the leader we look up to, and things like that, the savior out there. So it is about authenticity, but really coming from within, what is authentic to us.
mhm,
And um, I will write it around 48 laws of empowerment, and it's actually a reflection of the book from Robert Greene of the 48 laws of power. And I think that how empowerment looks like in our new societies, in the new systems that we are slowly, step by step building up, we don't even know yet how it's going to be like. So it will be like a view into the future, what it could look like and what the solutions could be, and why authenticity is so important. And it is measured even scientifically that authentic expression gives a higher vibrating frequency even than love.
mhm,
And that to me was like a really breakthrough, because I've always felt this all my life, that this love thing, I was always like a little like, yeah, I know, love, compassion, it's all important. And yes, I do experience it, that this vibration is really very connecting. But when you're in the love vibration, you can still hide yourself. You just meld with the whole group. You
mhm,
become part of the whole community and just go along, and you just blend in and you stay in the love frequency, which is beautiful and very easy. But to become authentic, you have to really dig deeper, like, what is true to me? Because we are so easily, especially when you're in a community with like-minded people, we kind of like adjust and adapt ourselves. Like we become the chameleons all, we adapt. And I think it's way more exciting, because we all are born with different gifts. And even though Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys talks essentially about 64 gifts, still even all of those gifts, plus all the different lines you can have those gifts in, give a huge variety in different colors of what it looks like in life. And I think our challenge is to really dig deeper and come out better and more authentic and more aligned with our own values, and really live up to that, and be courageous to be different. And even if you're not right, you're just different. It's not about right or wrong, it's just being yourself and being and thrive in that way. And that for me connects to leadership and organizations today, because I think that's where, and that might be a little bit out of context of this conversation, and perhaps for another one, artificial intelligence is really an
yeah.
interesting one, an interesting development.
Yeah.
And I think it will disrupt the system even more because it will give us a chance to differentiate from AI. And I know they talk about it's become more intelligent and more brilliant than the human brain ever can be. Great, but it can never love and it can never really connect from the way we can connect with pure emotions, because emotion is energy and emotion, as you know. And we are vibrating frequencies and we literally just energy. And AI has another, it gives us another mirror actually of what our true authentic way is, version is. And it also literally responds differently to everyone. If you just follow the people online, they have these beautiful conversations with AI and they all got different answers because it literally reflects back who you are already. So, and from company perspective or organization perspective, obviously it's a challenging question, like how do we differentiate? And can we still make companies that have like a profitable business, or do we even need that in a new economy? And I think for a long while we still need that. But we also will be invited to become very authentic and very dedicated to the real evolutionary purpose that is the why of the company. And then the organization will have to change in its form as well, which will also be part of the book. So it's going to be a mixture of things. And obviously I'm still writing it, so it might change a little bit over time, but this is going to be it, yeah, more or
And
less.
again, I love, love, love how you are provoking people to really think much more deeply than the hive mind.
Mm.
The collective mind, we're all one living, breathing organism together, but we also need a bit of disruption in any living organism for things to mutate and change and evolve, just as nature intended. And I love how you've even mentioned AI in there, because we will have another conversation about that. I would love to, because oh my goodness, I've had quite incredible experiences recently, one involving the moon, which was really interesting. And it's important for us to know that this divine intelligence that we hold has more capacity than the limits of the mind holds. So we're so limited by the mind because that's the programmable bit. And like you said, what differentiates us from artificial intelligence is the emotions. We have this enormous capacity to love. And going back to what you said earlier about financial institutions and the power dynamic and who holds the money, I truly believe that the currency that's going to be most profitable on the planet moving forward is that currency of love.
Mm.
That's the differential for us. But as you said, there's also the how do we show up in our capacity to love? Do we just all stay safe and we just keep doing the same thing and we just keep this sense of belonging, which is nice, we need to belong, but there will always be this need for any living, breathing organism to evolve. So we need the code breakers, we need the people in their pure, authentic expression of the divine. And as you were talking, I was just seeing this beautiful tapestry where we're all a different thread on that tapestry and owning our colour and our vibration, going, oh, I'm beautiful, so are you, but look at me.
Yeah,
Being that authentic part of the one, the unified field, like we all play our part and we can all look different, we can all express ourselves differently and not to get lost in the melee of sameness.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
that once you feel that, even if it's only for a brief moment, you literally know that everything you are is beautiful and perfect in and of itself. I mean, I don't know if you had that, but I was always drawn to movies that were about the ugly main player who was ugly and kind of like not accepted by the group and who was, I know, the weird one. And then she or he came out beautifully, became authentic, pushed through everything and all this, and came out beautiful. And then the whole person just literally changed.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole expression, I mean, the features were literally the same because I literally like looked at the pictures, like did they do everything with makeup? But not even that. It was literally the whole radiation of that being different. And we all have had these experiences, these moments where you're like so in tune
Mhm.
with yourself, and
Mhm.
that people just react to you like a magnet almost, or they just reflect you back
Yeah.
what it is how you feel. And I just wish for everyone to experience that. And I think it will shift more than just the love,
Mm.
definitely. And it also will help us, which is another big one, to let go of this savior out there who's going to save our planet. I mean, we've have a big example on our planet now. I don't know if you want to name that name right now, but um,
Nothing's going to polarize people more than the T word, eh?
exactly, exactly. And I can honestly see so many people who were like thinking the same way as I was. No, 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 we need to build our systems ourselves, or we need to bring it up from the bottom up again and build something new, are now kind of like blindly following, like, no, no, he's the savior, he's the savior. And I'm just like, I
Yeah.
don't think he is. He's a big disruptor. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing his role.
Yeah.
But it's we're not there yet if we sit back and say like it's solved for us. And I think that's I think the main message for me to everyone out there. Don't sit back. Not
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Step
And
forward.
and that is just such a beautiful point too. You know what I was saying earlier about the gurus, the time of that is over. The savior complex that's running and people looking for somebody else to rescue you. It's like, no, you have all the answers, all the codes within you just that you need to unlock. We have way more power and influence, and that comes back to the ripple effect that you've so beautifully written about. If we're thinking of everything as a collective evolution, we all play an individual part in that tapestry to influence and ripple out that currency of love. And that cannot not be felt.
No.
That's the butterfly effect, the chaos theory. That is it, and it's quantum physics, quantum entanglement. We cannot not affect what is happening on that world stage because it is just the inside pushed out. So just to finish this beautiful conversation, Lucienne, if people were interested in coming and working with you and alongside you to deepen into learning a bit more about themselves, what would you what would you say to them that you can offer them? You know, like you did mention this at the beginning, but I know that you've put together your own sort of signature model of authentic leadership, and you've got coaching that you offer and things. What would you say and appeal to people to really consider?
I would say I'm best for those who know a lot about themselves, who've done a lot of inner work, self-reflecting work, and who are at this point like, and who also see through what's happening, not perhaps the entire picture, but they know there's like something off, and it's not like it's like we're told it is. So that these two are kind of the requirements. Even if you haven't done a lot of inner work, but you feel like you're called to because you feel like you want to step up into a next role or a next phase in your life, those are the ones that I'm good for, because I want to dig deep, and I would almost say go fast. So it's either with me, you in the coaching process, it can be very short. It can be just one-offs, and then you come back after a while, or you stay with me a bit longer, and then you really want to refine it. You really want to go through the patterns. That's another option. But it is really for those who feel like, no, I really want to step on into my leadership role and what's authentic to me, and I want to push through those things that I know that hold me back. And so it's, yeah, the ones who have been on the journey already. And yes, the authentic leadership framework is a framework just as a guidance tool to understand the bigger picture in a very small, simple format. It's more like a guidance tool. It's not like a teaching tool or something. It's more just know where you are and that what influences you on a daily. So to become aware of the five big influences that constantly bombard us with
Mm.
things that we're not aware of. And then I will learn some skills, but it also goes organically. I'm not going through a very strict program. It really depends on the persons. And the other group is really the group who are leading an organization and really want to step up in leadership and really don't know how to move forward. They don't know how to break through this transparency thing and to open up and to really become a company with the values lived and not the values on a nice piece of paper, and really create shift from employees to co-workers, to collaboration instead of just having a pool of employees who really want to step up in the organization, become very adaptable and resilient and thriving as an organization, not because they want to be create the highest profit, but really because they want to be at service to their target group, to their clients.
I love that. I love that. And that's absolutely what is needed in every shape and form on this planet, Lucienne. I would love, before you go, I've produced my own Oracle deck and I would love to choose a card for you before
Oh,
I started to introduce this at the end of podcast episodes. Would you like a card, Lucienne?
yes, please.
Let's see what comes through. I've popped it up on my shelf here, so I'll just grab it down. I'll do a wee plug here, the Soul Call Oracle.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Available on Amazon. So let's just pull a card for you just to end and round off this beautiful conversation. Okay. I'll feel for the Lucienne vibes today. So for those of you that are listening, this will be for you too. And how perfect after our conversation today, Lucienne.
I was like, oh, Asian mirrors. Oh, wow. Beautiful.
We've just been talking about,
Yes.
everything that's reflected on the outside. And remember who you are.
Mm,
Isn't that
beautiful.
amazing after everything that you've just been sharing with us today? So let me share this message. And as I say, this is for everybody watching and listening too. Ancient Mirrors invites you to ponder the reflective journeys your soul has embarked upon through countless lifetimes. Mirrors are more than simple glass. Many believe they serve as portals to deeper realms of existence. As you gaze into your reflection, look beyond the physical form that greets you. Peer deeply into your eyes, the windows of your eternal soul, and behold the profound depths of your true essence. Your soul is ageless, rich with a wisdom accumulated from many lives, infused with love and tempered by spiritual trials and triumphs. This card is a call to remember the magnificent, powerful soul that you are, transcending beyond your physical presence. It's a reminder of your vastness, a nudge to awaken the incredible force of spirit you embody. Now is the time to summon all your magic, gifts, and ancient wisdom to fully embrace your divine mission. Start with mirror gazing. Let your reflection reveal not just your face, but your truest self. Ask your soul to recall and reveal your purpose, to guide you as you step boldly into your destiny. It's time to dive deep into self-recognition and to harness the profound insights that await within your own gaze. In the mirror's depth, I see ancient eyes staring back at me, wisdom deep and love so wide, my soul's reflection cannot hide.
Mm. Beautiful.
What a perfect card for you, Lucienne.
Perfect card for me. Absolutely.
Oh, I have loved every
Hmm.
minute of this conversation with you, Lucienne. I'm going to drop your
Likewise.
links down below this episode so people can connect with you, find you easily. I would highly, highly recommend that people, if you've not already read The Ripple Effect, it's a life-changing book. It's
Mm,
amazing.
thank you.
You'll get an even deeper sense of who you are, Lucienne, and your authentic expression showing up in the world. So I just want to honour you and thank you so much for being you and for connecting with me and the viewers and listeners here today and coming on for this wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And for all your work. I mean, you have beautiful expression through this podcast and all your other work as well, of course, but I know you best from your podcast. It's really, really beautiful
So kind.
to
Thank you so
share
much.
this.
We'll have you back on again, Lucienne.
Yes, let's do that. Talk about AI then, or money.
Yeah, and much more. Bye, love, everyone. Take care for now. Bye for
Ciao.
now.